And I'm Iman Rapeti, and I'll be the interviewer for the media box for the PIPSEC conference today.
Thank you, Man. I'm Rufeda Hamilton, Head of Payments, Standard Bank South Africa. It's lovely to be here.
Rafid, it is lovely to have you with me. And as we look at the way the world is shaped and where fintech is going, we know that over a billion people, I think 1.4 billion people across the globe are underbanked. And interestingly enough, 60% of that are concentrated on the African continent. And if you look a little bit deeper, it really speaks to those in the informal economy or those who are in the rural areas. This represents a huge opportunity for fintech, doesn't it?
It does. It represents a huge opportunity for the entire value chain offering payments, and the ecosystem is broader than just fintechs. It speaks to, for me, a time of radical candor to really re-choreograph the payment experience of the ordinary African. It's a little bit of a pet project for me to say we've got a vast number of players in the ecosystem in Africa, South Africa. Fintechs have shown the opportunities that are available already to leverage technology, to look at the payment solution, the payment conundrum of the ordinary African, find ways to integrate those into the formal banking sector where they have to, and then the informal sector as well. If you look at examples such as M-Pesa in Kenya. So I think in South Africa itself, we are at the moment quite bank oriented in terms of how we deliver payment services, but we've seen massively huge inputs through fintechs who are coming into the space, collaborating. The ingenuity marvels me every day, and I think it speaks to an opportunity for banks, non-bank participants as we call them, the payment participants to come together and to solve the payment conundrum of the ordinary African.
So you're talking about retrofitting the way banks typically operate to meet an opportunity in the market today. Why do you think they haven't done that? One of these stark examples we heard heard about this morning was from Cas Cavadia, talking about. Well, in fact, it wasn't Cas. It was the previous speaker, Isaiah Mahlanga, who talked about the fact that a number of spaza shops and spaza owners in South Africa don't have access to formal payment systems. A massive opportunity that nobody's really leaned into. Why do you think that is?
So I love the reference to an informal economy, and often that means immediately someone references a sponsorship, because I would actually go so far as to say that we no longer see that as the informal economy. If anything, we believe that for a long time, traditional approaches to solving for payment solutions has meant we primarily tend to solve for the already digitized. Where can you swipe a card or tap a card? Where is there access to a terminal, for example? I think that we've moved past that point of differentiating between formal and informal, especially in a country where we know that the vast majority of South Africans already have access to a digital device. Why we are not encouraging and creating the opportunity for more engagement on that digital device and creating a platform that says the barriers to digital payments, which included true digital inclusion like access to affordable data and access to a phone that offers the features that you need to encourage a digital payment, are solved for. And then you look at, well, who's the audience that you are, the target market that you're creating these opportunities for to improve their payment experience. And I would say that is exactly in what we like to term the informal economy. That is where the opportunities for growth in payments exist, and that is where we really are now focusing our payment innovation. If you look at PayShap, launched this year in the country, taken us, steps, leaps and bounds forward in terms of improving payment experience. What does it mean, and how do we engage and bring closer all of those South Africans trading in the informal sector, whether you're a small, medium enterprise or you're an individual consuming those goods and services? How do we bring you together into the PayShap ecosystem and journey is now where I think this massive call for banks, non-bank participants, whether you're a fintech provider or not, to really look at how you can bring a tool set and a mechanism like PayShap to the large majority of South Africans who need it to really radicalize that informal economy into a digital world.
Rufeda, part of the objective that almost remains elusive is how do you establish the credit worthiness of the unbanked? And we've just been discussing about how in this particular market in South Africa, a number, in fact the majority, are unbanked. What are the alternative ways that banks are able to use the way these consumers are interacting with other technologies around the purchasing of airtime and other things to establish an alternative way of building that credit-worthy profile?
It's such an interesting dichotomy that you speak to, because I don't think it's unique to an emerging market like South Africa. I actually think that, worldwide, even in the very highly developed, sophisticated markets, creditworthiness and remaining vibrant in a formal economy speaks to your creditworthiness, because you've got activity and you've created a creditworthiness footprint that a lender sees favorably or unfavorably if your profile's not great. Now, it goes a lot to what I've just previously said. We treat this informal economy as sitting on the side, but it is very much a part of a very vibrant ecosystem. And if we speak to a broader ecosystem, a platform-based ecosystem, banks traditionally have been very good at lending and very good at payments and are trusted participants in that ecosystem. But you've got mobile network providers who come into the space, and they're offering a vast variety of services because they've got platforms that have endeared themselves to a mobile user who needs to buy airtime for the day, but at the same time looks at something they can do within that ecosystem with other participants or providers in that ecosystem, content providers. And in the same way, I see a world, and I may be unique amongst payment bankers, fast dying breed that is, where those worlds can come together. And a mobile network operator's platform and the ingenuity with which they are able to curate content for the ordinary South African lends itself to building up a profile and creditworthiness that allows for data sharing and sophisticated data sharing and mature and responsible data sharing from where we've come from. Backdrop of, not much in terms of legislation, regulation protecting data, to now a highly sensitized world that says we got to protect data, so we close ranks and we don't share. And when you can find a way that the collaboration exists with the client to consent to share the data in both parts of these behemoths who hold the data for these ecosystems, who can work collaboratively, you find content curators who are building up a profile of the ordinary African, tapping in the township or buying data within a mobile network platform, as well as the need for pure traditional banking services like a small home loan, personal lending services. You can find those two come together quite natively to offer the services to those who need them.
So we're reading a lot of data around digitization or the digitalization of services, for example, and the way that people are choosing to interface with service providers. In some countries, there's a big uptake of digital services. People will transact, they'll use their mobile phones, they'll use their laptops and so on. In a country like ours, what does that mean for traditional banking? And are we beginning to see the demise of the branch and the brick and mortar structure?
I love this question. Every single time I sit in a room at a conference, it comes up is the improvement and enhancement of the payment experience through participation of non-bank participants and fintechs, particularly encouraging the demise of the banks. So I don't believe that. I think that there is opportunity for collaboration, and like I spoke to, the old school branch bricks and mortar networks, yes, may be less relied on, but our point of engagement that we still find reliable and trusted, because that is what a bank represents. So the vast majority, and yes, that statistic is changing rapidly across the world. If you look at Asia, the vast majority of younger people trust the platform providers like Alipay, WeChat, as opposed to a traditional bank. But I would say that in Africa, South Africa, the banks hold and still command a high degree of trust earned over hundreds of years of what we do and what we do well. The bricks and mortar constructs have evolved, and there's a growing trend of digitized users in banking context that for me is very encouraging, because I think it's not great to operate in a bubble where you and I are highly digitized and we do everything on our phone, and we hate and rue the day we have to walk into a branch, versus the granny in the township who comes into the metro and queues in 35-degree heat to withdraw cash at an ATM on payday. We want to change that experience. So we want to use branches for engagement opportunities that truly create meaningful, fulfilling financial services and or other, because opportunities to collaborate with just non-traditional players in the space is huge, and use those as engagements that are meaningful beyond doing the basics, the invisible payment. For the granny in the township to withdraw cash because she has to on-pay becomes less of a friction point issue if she learns to trust her device and learns to be active on that device and move money, and shifts that trust base to, well, I can trust that it's in a digital format and I can still move money, but when I need to go in to a branch and speak to an individual, is because there are services that I truly need, that I don't think I can learn from or adapt from a mobile device into a reality. So I think there's still opportunity. I don't think you're going to see a branch on every corner, but I think you'll find very meaningful engagement points that promote access to those who still need it. So a channel is, a branch is a channel, and I don't ever forget that, because there will always be users of bricks and mortar, but I'm saying there's opportunity to now innovate around how you leverage that physical presence.
Well, if you had to ask the question of my mum, who's 77, she will agree with you 100%. Resistant to smartphones, a lot of distrust about whether her information is going to be shared. And interestingly, that's probably what is one of the sort of inhibiting factors for people who want to, who might consider going entirely into digital is my information and are my details going to be safe? Let's come to the question of Paytex then. Paytex, a massive and growing market in the world. I think the last estimation as of 2020, north of $2 trillion and growing. And when we're talking about Paytech, we're talking about real-time payments, we're talking about open banking, we're talking about cross-border payments, buy now, pay later schemes, and so on. As you look at these innovations, Rufeda, how well would you say South Africa's keeping pace?
I think we're doing remarkably well. I look at, for example, I'm on a panel tomorrow with two very established fintechs. I'm very excited about the opportunity, bank versus fintech. Everybody's waiting for this sort of cage fight. But the rise of the platform is probably what's going to, for me, transform the African landscape in terms of payments. And there are green shoots everywhere across the continent. We can see the West versus East Africa and the split in terms of, and I look at, when you say Paytex, I also look at the mobile network operators broadly in that, to say who has transformed a payment experience for the ordinary, your mum, and managed to excite her about the opportunity to be part of a platform economy, part of a digitized payment experience where everything is instantaneous and it's trusted and your data is safe. A lot to achieve on your own as a fintech, yet we know in Asia, WeChat, Alipay managed to achieve it without blinking an eye, and then the regulators woke up and saw where that was going, and the right controls have been put in place. So I see the same journey for Africa. I think the growth through the mobile network operators in West Africa and East Africa has been astounding. I think the rise of instant payments across the continent, where a lot of them are both bank and regulator originated, as well as pure fintech or paytech originated. So if you look at Ghana, for example, great example, because the regulators installed an instant payment scheme like we have in South Africa in PayShap, and the take-up was very low, the adoption was very low, notwithstanding a vibrant banking sector, but it was about the how and how it was entrenched in terms of grabbing your mom into that economy. And I think very quickly, the Ghanaian authorities realized that there was an opportunity to bring the mobile network operators into the space, because that was where the large majority of digital activity was happening. And once those digital operators came into the space, instant payments became a reality. So I do think that in South Africa we've got PayShop, we've got fintechs who have amazing features and design improvements that they can offer to enhance the PayShop journey. We look forward to working with them, and we look forward to the regulatory shifts that are coming very soon in the country that will enable non-bank participants, payment providers, the likes of Paytex, to come into the space. And I look forward to the day when we see platforms, large social media platforms, that I think eventually are going to have a massive impact on the African continent, and offer an ecosystem to provide to both providers like small medium enterprises, like informal economy, to offer their goods and services, as well as consumers to take them up in these platform businesses.
Very exciting things, and it's always encouraging to hear that South Africa is right at the heart of that conversation, and that we are, in many ways, cutting edge and leading the way. Thank you very much, Rufeda Hamilton, for talking to us today and sharing your perspective.
Thank you. It's lovely being here.